Hi, I'm LaShonda, and I'm going to speak about contemporary literary fiction. Contemporary literary fiction is what most plots are modern day. It's a plot that's surrounding fictional characters in a modern society. For instance, the story may reference a moment in time, specifics as to days or events, or maybe even movies. So, for instance, there may be a fictionalized character that is um, being put in a day where everybody remembers. For instance, most people remember 9/11. So it may be a fictional story, fictional character, but this event happens and it happens on the same day. So that would be what a modern day is. What it is not is a biography. So it would not be someone's story then being told in a fictional way. So it would not be a biography. So most plots are modern day, but it is not a biography. So you would not have, for instance, you would not have a real person and doing real events. So because that would be based off a true story. As you see most movies, they always say, for instance, what's love got to do with it was based off true events of a true person. So it was a biography, but they do add that disclaimer based off the events, based off the book I, Tina, which was a biography written by Tina Turner. Now, why do they have to put base? Because of course they're going to have to take some events out. They're going to have to change some events. They're going to have to make some events more digestible to a audience that everyone can see this movie and understand and piece it all together so they're taking her life and putting it in a 2-hour span, so it's based off true events. So for most plots, like I said, for contemporary, it's modern day. Now, an example of that is so characters being created around, per se, like again, fictional characters being based off real events. Another thing would be based off fashion trends, things you would see happening in that specific day. For example, Sex in the City. So everybody remembers the fashions of Sex in the City. Everybody remembers, and even now, you could wear all 4 of these pieces. No one would bat an eye. This movie came out, 2000? It came out around 2004, around that time. So this still looks good. No one will be ever questioning these outfits because it's pretty modern, even though it's an older movie, but it's a great way. So then another thing, a fictional person, their lives in a real city, which is New York. These characters are not real. You're not going to meet Charlotte walking down the street with her 2 kids. You're not going to see Carrie morning big on New York. These are fictional people who lived in a real city, who sometimes did real event things. For instance, Fashion Week. Fashion Week is a real event. You may see these ladies there, but this is not going to be Carrie Bradshaw. This is going to be Sarah Jessica Parker. And this is not going to be Charlotte. For instance, this is going to be, I can't even think of her name. This is going to be Kristen Davis. So again, modern day situations, modern day looks, but fictional characters in real places. Another thing, so that's something that we'll put that in the black, that you will see. You'll see real cities. You may see modern fashion, and you may have a modern or recent event, but the people will not be real. Okay, so like I said, another thing is the characters was created around this specific event. So For instance, if you've ever seen Think Like a Man. So there was a specific event. What was the event? Steve Harvey dropped the book. It was called Think Like a Man. It was called Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man. So then they said, hey, that was a best-selling book. Let's take that, make this movie. So now we're going to create characters who happen to come across this real book and say they read the book and now their lives are changing for the better or worse because they read this specific book. Now they're going to follow all the rules. And as this real book is navigating these fictional characters, you'll see how that plays out. So it may be fictional characters where it's created specifically for a real event and show you how that real event affected fictional characters' lives. Another, I didn't have it, but another example of that would be the movie Love Actually. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not Love Actually, I apologize. It's called Definitely Maybe, and it's starring Ryan Reynolds. So Definitely Maybe is about a 30-year-old guy who's telling his daughter how his life before, he had a child was in this city. I believe it was maybe Seattle. Not quite sure about the city, but it was a character dealing with real events. He was a person who worked at Bill Clinton's headquarters when he was becoming a president. Not while he was president, he was just a candidate for president. It also showed he had never heard of Nirvana until one of the girls he liked said, hey, have you ever heard of this band called Nirvana? Nirvana's a real band. Bill Clinton's a real man who was running for president in that year of 1992. So you have real people, real events happening, real music happening, and this person character was based all around the events of 1992. Okay, so those are just examples of how movies can do that. Books can do that as well. If you've ever read The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Souljah, those were real events that happening with the crack epidemic and the rise of queen pens, and it was a fictional person who was doing real life event things. So if you've ever seen New Jack City, those were fictional people. Nino Brown was a fictional person put in a position of a real kingpin of how the crack epidemic started. He is not the real person. That was Wesley Snipes showing you how that happened. So that's another example of modern day. It would then have modern day dilemmas. Modern day dilemmas are unique to what's going on right now, today, or when that movie and or book was written. Like I've given you the examples of maybe it was in 1992. So contemporary literary fiction will have modern day problems, something that maybe they had that's very unique to that time period. For instance, in the time of social media, everything. But when this movie came out, it was very possible that he could have got away with what he got away with. In 1980, so a man coming from Zamunda saying he was an African prince and having the garbs or coming like this before he said, okay, let's simplify our lives. It was very possible that he could have been an African prince. There was no way to say, hey, he's not an African prince. He's not who he say he is. He's there because there was no social media. There was no way to prove it. You come from Africa in 1980. Who's to say you're not? It may be a far off thought to us now, But in this time, maybe not even this time, maybe, but yeah, in by 1980, there was, if a man came from Africa and said, I'm an African prince, and he had a little bit of money to flash, or maybe was living off credit cards, who knows, he kind of, so because this was, it would not be believable now, because you could just Google, who's the Princess of Munda? Who's the Prince of Nigeria? Who's the Prime Minister of Canada? Who's the King of England? Things like that you can Google now. But at this time, this movie came out, there was no Google, there was no Facebook, there was no Twitter, no social media. This man could have dropped in New York with 10 million people and found one girl and said, I'm a prince, and she would have believed him. So that's an example of modern day. So today, a modern day problem may be something that your grandparents would not have ever thought about. Oh, my FaceTime doesn't work. Your grandparents probably never heard of that, never seen a phone back in the day. The phone was hooked to the wall and you used to have to go back and circle and circle. So now all you got to do is hit a button, see someone's face. Honestly, I remember my grandmother telling me that was the work of the devil. When we was hearing about these things were coming to being made, she's like, nope, that's the work of the devil. Somebody facing the phone, you in New York and they're here. You could, she wasn't into this because this technology was scary to her. So it's modern day problems. Your Facebook is deactivated, or you, per se, another thing that was not a problem, maybe not even Tesla. You probably wouldn't have had anywhere to hook up your electric car. That was a problem. That when they first came out with this idea, you had to have a certain carport, a certain way to do it, or this or that or the other. Now Teslas are all over the street. They have car hookups or electronic hookups. It's not even a problem. Like again, cell phones. When I was growing up, we didn't have those things. You had a payphone. You had to have a dime. It used to be a dime. Then I remember people complaining when it went up to a quarter. Then it went up to a quarter, and then it was 50 cents. And then went from 50 cents, they were completely gone because cell phones had taken the place. Another thing that is a modern day problem that may not have been a problem back in the day is this is going to sound kind of like rich people problems, which is people having personal jets. This is a modern day problem. Back in the day, you might have flown first class, but we're all getting on the same plane. That people having personal jets, and only maybe the rich had personal flights, and even then, not even. So it's like, things that, I can't, get on my personal jet today. That's kind of a modern day problem. Maybe 10 years ago, regular people still flew regularly. Now, you even see regular people get them private jets. So that's an example of a modern problem. So the story will have not getting Beyonce tickets. So they're gonna say, okay, 5-10 years ago, getting her tickets was just, I go online and do what I need to do. I go buy it if I want to buy it. I go to Ticketmaster. I put my credit card information. Now they have to text you in order for you to get in line, and then you have to be chosen for them to say, hey, we got some seats open. So that's a modern day problem. Someone could write a story about the day I tried to go see Beyonce, but I had to get in line and then they didn't choose me. When they did choose me, I didn't have enough money. So those are examples of things that would happen. Those are modern day dilemmas. Something that 5 years from now, we might be laughing at. 5 years, let's just call it what it is. The situation with 2 years ago, we would have never thought we would have been wiping off chips and not being able to see friends and not being able to see loved ones, being cooped up in the house, gaining weight. So that's a modern day problem, because 10, 20 years ago, they had never heard of that. 5 years ago, we had never heard of that. Now we're 3 years out. It's a common situation now. So that's just my take on the contemporary literary genre. So let's just recap. It's the characters around that specific event. The specific event could be a book release, a book release, a movie release. That can be you know, tragedies that was never before. That could be good things, like I said. It could be tickets, getting concert tickets. Like I said, another modern day private jets. And so you can write movies and you can write books around these, and then 5, 10 years, 20 years from now. Another one that I had, I think I put it away. Per Se. This is an this is a very old movie. Some people may recognize it, some people may not. So Per Se, this was a modern day, in its time, was around a specific event. So the gold rush was a specific event in California, when people, they were calling it the gold rush. So when people were moving to California and they were trying to go out west. So this is what this movie was. Even though now it's history and it's not an old problem, but think about when, not when the movie came out, of course, but the movie is based around that specific time and how these three characters coexisted in that particular time in the gold rush. So it's a real life event of people moving to California due to the gold rush, and what happened when the gold rush really was a bust. So Paint Your Wagon would be an example of that. So in conclusion, I think I love this genre because you can write or create a story, and it could be something that, oh, I remember, people could say, oh, I remember that, and that way they could connect with your story because they remember when Pandam hit, and they could remember when all the chaos of elections hit, and they can remember none of this then. They might remember, oh, I remember we just go vote and that's it. Like the next day your person lost, you just go back to work. That's it. Y'all don't care. Before people became really political. So when you write things like that, it's just a way to connect the audience more. Like they can remember in their minds. People are gonna remember Beyonce 100 years from now, just like we remember when we saw Tina Turner dance for the first time, or when even if we didn't see it, it's legendary. We're gonna remember. We're going to be connected. These are people. Elvis. They're still making movies about Elvis. They may have fictional movies around him, biographies. So you're gonna remember real life events, and that's what draws people in. I'd like to thank you so much for sticking around for this video, and thank you.